Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Authentic English for Curious Learners. Today, Miss Minia and I are going to be discussing the Part 1 question of walking, which is really kind of a strange topic. What do you say? But there's a lot of IELTS Part 1 questions like this, so find out what we talk about. We're also going to be discussing the Part 2 question of a time we encouraged someone to do something that they didn't want to do. And as for me, I think you want to pay attention because I wasn't able to answer the question the way it was asked, but I still answered the question. What did I do? Pay attention and it might help you out in your Part 2s. Before we move on, I want to remind you to check the description for both the transcript as well as for a list of useful vocabulary that you can use to both understand what me and Minia are talking about, but also to help build your own answers. Now, let's get to the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Authentic English for Curious Learners. Hello, Miss Minia.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
We have another new episode for you this week, and we're going to be talking about the Part 1 question, which I actually find quite difficult. Walking. The topic is walking. And the Part 2 topic of describing a time you encourage someone to do something they didn't want to do, which I also find quite difficult. Some IELTS questions, even Part 1, are tricky. They're tricky.
Yeah, it's good to have some kind of idea before you enter the test.
Absolutely. Always be. I have some problems with the prediction sites, but I think they're a good tool just to familiarize yourself with topics that have been asked and that may be being asked. So you're not hearing the questions for the first time or not thinking about the topic for the first time. Of course, don't use them to memorize answers or even overly prepare, but just if I'm asked this question, what could I talk about? What could I talk about? So, do you walk a lot?
I can't say that I do. I guess it stems from a bit of being scared of moving slowly past strangers.
You think you'll be kidnapped?
Or it's because I had some not really nice experiences walking alone in the past, even in broad daylight. Being catcalled, for example. Or I've heard stories from friends of being inappropriately touched.
Yeah, no one likes that.
No. I'm not sure if I should go into these dark details in this IELTS test.
Yeah, I think what you just said is enough. That's interesting you say that, Huen, because in the examiner handbook, we actually they talk about what to do if your student gets upset, if your examinee gets upset. Because obviously there are a lot of things that could come up in IELTS that you think you might be being fine talking about, but it's a stressful situation anyway, and who knows if you start getting upset how examiners should handle that, if someone gets physically upset. So I think you said just enough.
Okay, so whatever I just said was okay?
Yeah.
It wasn't too dark?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
In fact, a word like catcall is idiomatic, right? It's good. It's high-level language.
Yeah? I thought it was like slang.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you walk a lot?
You know what? I actually thought you were going to say no because of where you live. And when I lived in Hanoi, I did not walk a lot because it was so difficult. I mean, the sidewalks were full of bikes or other people. The roads were crazy. But now that I live in Da Nang, I go for a walk every morning. I walk probably about 5 or 6 kilometers every morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nice.
It's very nice. It's very nice. I walk along the beach. So yeah, I would say I walk quite a bit down here, and I certainly walk more than I have before because I am a little lazy. And that would be the next question. Where did I walk lately? Is I walk along the beach every morning, and I see a Guanam statue overlooking the ocean, and I recognize people because I've been down there and say good morning to people, and it's lovely. It's lovely.
Hmm. Do they say hi back?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, there's a Vietnamese woman who started saying hi to me every morning. And so now I say hi to her as well. So we see each other every morning. Today she shook my hand and wished me a good morning.
Next time she might hug you.
She might. I was actually wondering about that. I was actually wondering, I'm like, is this going to progress to where I get the morning hug? I'm not a big hugger. I'm not a big hugger. Have you taken a walk lately? Anywhere?
Yes, even though I am scared of walking alone, I take my son to the park
Mm-hmm.
every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I guess because my son is there with me, my fears dial down a
Mm-hmm.
notch.
And it's a safe space, right? There's lots of other parents around, lots of kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I shouldn't let fears stop me from doing healthy things.
Mm. I
And
understand you can take
also,
precautions, right? But I mean, obviously, you want to be safe and you want your family to be safe.
mm, and I guess my wish to like build a healthy habit for my son is bigger than my fears. So I basically don't think about it. I just like focus on making my son walk to the
Mm.
park.
And little ones have a lot of energy, so it probably helps him to burn off some energy, maybe take a nap, give you some free
Yeah,
time.
yeah. It really helps him eat better and sleep better.
Now, did you grow up in the city?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, in the outskirts,
Okay.
on the outskirts.
So, were you able to go outside and walk a lot when you were a child, or was that something you liked to do when you were a child?
We did walk a lot because, as I mentioned in previous podcasts, my family lived near a forest.
Mm.
It was within walking distance. And I guess there wasn't much to do in your free time apart from like walking, taking a walk, or going for a ride on a bicycle in the summer, or in the winter I could go skiing in that forest.
Mm. Yeah,
So
because like we talked about, no one really had cell phones. The
no,
internet wasn't a big thing like it is now.
yeah, and that was just like a habit to go into the forest to walk or ride a bicycle. It was nice. I really enjoyed those walks.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah, I can't say. I grew up in the countryside, so we definitely had a lot more freedom than someone growing up in the city. I don't know that I would say I was outside taking a walk, but we were certainly outside playing, playing some type of ball, running around, playing hide and seek, going on a bike ride,
Mm,
and maybe sometimes walking. I remember I used to go for walks with my sister. I lived near a big park, and it probably wasn't safe for me to go over there by myself because there just weren't a lot of people around, and it was on kind of a big road. But I remember going over there with my sister when she was much older than me, and we would
mm.
go swing. I would go swing or play on the slide or whatever else, and that was always fun. But I was definitely outside and active, even if I wasn't taking a walk. I was outside doing something.
Yes, that's right. That's what I would do. Yeah, that's what I
Mm-hmm.
did as a child too.
And you know, we both of us kind of answered that question in a circular way. While, I could just say, no, I didn't go outside. And you could have said the same thing, but it's like, that's not an appropriate answer for an English test, right? So
No.
while I didn't go for a walk a lot, I was always outside moving, playing, riding bike, and so on.
Mm.
because of course we have to give enough English to be assessed. So that requires answering the questions in a certain way sometime. Where would you like to take a long walk if you had the chance?
Ooh, no doubt a big, lush forest. I mean, because I live in a city, it's a luxury to be able to immerse myself completely in nature like that. And I am more of a forest or a mountain person, so I wouldn't choose the beach.
Yeah, it can be a little hot. I was there at 6 o'clock this morning. It was already a little hot.
Ooh. So what would your place be?
You know, I mentioned in previous podcasts as well that I used to live in Canada and how beautiful the area, Newfoundland, that I was in was. And I'd really like to visit Newfoundland again one day. It's very far north, so they have a very short summer, but it was always very pretty, and the weather was nice in the summertime. And take a walk through the forest that I used to walk in, and by the streams. It was just very pretty. It was just very, very
Oh,
pretty and very peaceful. I think I would like to go back and do that.
but just in the summer. You wouldn't go back
Just in
in
the
the other seasons.
summer. I would like to go back in the other seasons, but I wouldn't be taking a walk. I walked enough in the winter in Newfoundland when I was there. It was very cold and very
Mm.
wet, and very windy. Why do you think people like to now? I This area that I used to walk in, maybe part of it was a park, but part of it was just trails through the forest, through the woods. Why do you think people like to go for walks in parks?
I guess it's a nice break from their everyday life scene and worries, like if they work in the city. I think it especially applies to people who work in the city.
Yes.
It would be a nice break for them. Not so much for country people because I don't think countryside has parks because everything is already nature. People don't have that need. So yeah, to take a break.
Yeah, nature is much more accessible in the countryside.
Hmm.
But, you know, there were still parks when I was young, but they would tend to be maybe they would have a playground for children, or maybe they would have pavilions or tables for people to sit at and picnic.
Um,
So while there was plenty of space to walk around, we would maybe go to a park for special purposes.
okay, so you would have other reasons to add to that
Yeah,
question.
yeah. I mean, it was nature and trees, but maybe also a little more manicured, right? Like I lived near woods, and you would run in the woods, and there would be lots of weeds and lots of thorn bushes, and the trails were all overgrown because they were just being made by children running through. Whereas the parks were easier to walk around, they were maintained. You could spread out a blanket and have a picnic. Maybe
Mm,
that is why people like to park in the countryside, like to go to parks still. But definitely in
mm,
the city, I agree with you because there are so many houses right on top of one another. Where I used to live in my city in the United States, I lived near a huge park, and it was so nice to go to, just to be surrounded by trees. And there was a bird sanctuary there and a flower reserve, like native plants. It was
mm.
beautiful. It was beautiful.
You can also take in the fresh air from
Absolutely,
the trees.
you just felt like you could breathe easier. And I chose this of the options you sent me because people have to encourage me to walk because I don't like to exercise. So the question is, describe a time when you encouraged someone to do something that they didn't want to do. I think this topic is quite difficult.
At first, I had no idea what I
Yeah.
would talk about, but then over the course of the day, when I revisited this topic again, like just had a look at it. The second time, something came up. And here
Oh,
is my answer.
very lucky for you. I'm ready for it. I'm all ears.
So my husband is a pretty athletic person, but the way he stays active is mainly by playing badminton. The thing about badminton is that even though it's a good calorie burn, it's fun, competitive, and has a social aspect to it,
Mm.
it takes time, like to travel to the court and a little bit of organizing to make it happen because you need an opponent. You make to make arrangements to meet this person.
Mm.
So when my husband gets busy, it becomes really hard for him to stay active, to keep his streak of being physically active.
Mm.
And it doesn't help with the stress from being busy. So I suggested that he start something that I do, a quick home workout.
Mm.
All he'd need would be a workout video and a mat. For 15 to 30 minutes, he can sweat it out, feel good, and most importantly, be able to stay consistent. Yeah, he can also vary the type of exercise he does because there are hundreds of kinds of videos available online. Uh, Plus, he doesn't necessarily have to replace his badminton. Yeah, and he loves it so much. My advice is just to like add this quick workout into his routine so he has something to fall back on when time is tight. Uh, and it comes from my own experience. I've tried so many ways to stay active consistently, and this is what I found to work best. And honestly, when it comes to fitness, I believe nothing beats consistency.
Yeah, you always hear that consistency is key, right?
Anyway, my husband was reluctant to take my advice because it takes time for him to get used to new ideas
Mm.
like me. But I think I will try and convince him, uh, maybe uh, do something else to help him start.
Where do you find videos to work out at?
YouTube.
Oh, just YouTube. Is there
Yeah.
someone in particular you follow, or just you just
Oh, I
search for
have
whatever you're
so
in the
many
mood for?
people.
Oh, really?
I have
Yeah.
so many people I love. Now these days I usually do yoga workouts, just 15 to 20 minutes thing. Uh, and I use videos from Boho Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I have I have followed this person since the beginning of my yoga journey, and I just love how she practices in nature and she talks you through what you need to do. The only drawback to her videos is that some people say she talks too much,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't mind. And some of her practices can be a bit difficult for
Oh, really?
beginners.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then when I am not in a mood to do something serious, for me, yoga workout sound yoga sounds serious. I would just search for Mad Fit's uh, dance workout. She is amazing. I think she has a background in dancing, and all of her dance workouts are stylized the to match the music.
Mm.
Like if she is dancing to the music of the 80s, for example, the moves would be different.
Mm-hmm.
And if she dances to Ariana Grande's songs, she would dress up a little bit like Ariana Grande. Like she's so detailed.
And it's free
S-
because it's YouTube, right?
Yeah, it's free. She has her both of these women have their apps,
Mm-hmm.
but I think whatever they put online for free is enough.
Like we put this online for free.
Yes.
That's one of the beautiful things of the internet. I used to use yogi on YouTube, Yoga with Adrienne, and I liked her because it was much more restorative yoga, I think, and
Mm,
gentle stretching for my back, and I loved it. I loved it.
mm.
And I
Do
know
you,
that we have Apple Fitness, and there's dance videos on there as well. Dancing's a great workout.
yeah, you'd really sweat it out. Do you still use yoga with Adrian?
When
Or
I do yoga, I do. Now that I'm able to get out and go for walks and stuff, I do my own stretches and a little bit yoga on the beach. But if
okay.
I'm home, if I
Oh,
can't get out, I will do. Yeah. Oh my gosh, down
wait, you
here,
do yoga on the beach?
so many people. I don't do anything crazy yoga, right? I don't do any, but I do back stretches and side stretches.
Do you feel a bit self-conscious when you do that in front of people?
At first, but there are so many people on the beach doing yoga, doing meditation, doing stretches, swimming. It's no big deal at
Oh, that's
all.
so nice.
Oh
You just
yeah,
blend in.
100%. 100%. It's crazy. Everyone's doing their own thing and everyone's trying to be just a little bit healthier. It's really, honestly, I find it quite motivating.
I would love to see a video of you doing yoga on the beach. That should be one of your next videos to
Yes,
post.
all my students, I'm sure, would love to see that.
Well, it could be used as like yoga vocabulary
That's true.
introduction thing.
That's true.
Yeah. This is like a downward dog.
Mm-hmm.
Or breathe in, breathe out.
Right,
So,
the cobra pose. Actually, talk about motivating students. That is my answer. I cannot think of a single time that if that I encourage someone to do something. So, is that a problem for this question? No, I don't think it is. In fact, I would tell the examiner, well, I can't think of a single person, but I have had classes of students where I really felt that I had to go above and beyond to motivate them because I've always taught speaking, or that's always been a big part of what I teach, and speaking is scary. Particularly for elementary students, pre-intermediate students, and even IELTS students. So I really have to work to create a safe space, a non-judgmental space where you can still be corrected, but it's correction in a helpful way, and to try and get my students to speak. And when they do, they're always so very happy if they can go through the semester and have really increased their speaking skills. Because as you know, it doesn't happen overnight. It has to build a little by little by little. And by speaking every day, you're exercising those muscles and you're 100% guaranteed to see progress. Again, like you said, consistency is key. So if you're listening to this podcast right now, this is a sign that you need to speak more. And you will get better.
yeah. I could suggest everyone to pause every time Kevin or I ask a question and give it a go before you hear our versions.
That's
That
a
could be a
very
way
good
for
idea.
you
It's a
to
very good
practice.
idea.
Yeah.
And I know both of us use intonation quite well. Pause and shadow what we say, or pause, rewind, and say it along with us. Shadowing has absolutely been shown to help improve all of those pronunciation features outside of just sounds, right? Stress,
Mm.
rhythm, duration of syllable, intonation, and pitch. 100% been shown to be one of the most helpful methods. So you should absolutely be doing that.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
So I always get pushback, I think, when I encourage someone to speak more, no matter what their level is, because I think it makes people feel very vulnerable. And I agree with them. I don't speak as much Vietnamese as I should. And because I don't speak it as much as I should, I've not improved as fast as I could have improved. But no one likes to feel vulnerable. No one likes to feel silly when they speak. But I can honestly say I have never judged someone or ridiculed someone or criticized someone who was trying to speak a second or third language. Have you?
No, I
Right.
really appreciate people trying. And
100%.
also, no pain, no gain.
That's right, too. That's right, too. You feel a little bit silly today, but tomorrow you'll feel better. And the next day you'll feel even better. And eventually it will be like me doing my stretches and yoga on the beach. You will realize that no one is paying any attention to you. So don't worry about it. It's all about getting better a little bit every day. So that's what I tell my students to encourage them. And it's always worked in the past. I've never had a student never say, you made us speak too much.
No.
Yeah, they always appreciate it because it does pay off. It does pay off. And there are students that I'm still in touch with down here, old students, and they tease me that they would speak to me. We would go out and maybe have a smoke break, and I would talk to them, and they would be forced to use English in a casual way, and it really helped. It really helped their English improve. So that's it. That's my part 2 answer. Also a slightly different spin, but I think it was okay. The examiner is not going to penalize you. You're still answering the question and using relevant and coherent language. Don't worry if you can't think of one exact example.
Yeah. And it's okay to make things up.
Yes, of
As long as you
course.
can,
Of course.
as long as you can keep going
Yeah.
and be relevant to the topic.
Yeah. I always tell people, think of something that happened to you personally first. If you can't, think of a story that you know well, something that happened to your boyfriend, girlfriend, brother, sister, mom, dad, cousin. If you can't, think of something that you know well from TV, a book, or a movie. And then finally, if you have to, make something up. I think that that's an order that will deliver for you in terms of you don't want to jump, because sometimes if we're lying or making things up, it affects our fluency as we think of details. So I would move first to a story that you know very well, even if it happened to somebody else. Well, I think that draws everything to a close today. I'd like to remind you all to check out our transcript, and we also have vocabulary terms in the description below. I'd like you to leave us a thumbs up and subscribe. And also, please, if you're listening, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. And let us know about any topics that you might like to see us or listen to us cover in the future. Do you have anything else this week, Miss Minia? Oh, well, I think Miss Minia froze. So I will wish you all happy studies. And I will see you next week. We will both see you next week. Bye-bye.